Welcome to another episode of Superlead Insights. I'd like to thank Manda and the team for inviting me. Manda has asked me to tackle a very difficult subject of cost transformation, a subject that we have both led projects in, both as consultants and also as leaders in industry. These are very unprecedented and uncertain times, and companies are finding it difficult to run their businesses profitably because during lockdown, many companies were not producing anything. And also the companies that are exporting their products are not only affected by the economic situation here in the country, but also are affected by the depressed international markets. And many companies that had hoped to raise funds like this are finding it difficult to raise cash in such depressed capital markets. So many companies have had to look within to take those bold decisions to increase flexibility in the way that they run their business and to significantly and sustainably reduce cost, whilst improving efficiencies and increasing speed and agility in their cooperations. And also for some, it means pivoting to other sources of revenue. Mouthful, right? So where does one start? Maybe let's start by demystifying the fact that cost transformation does not always equate to retrenchments. There are many levers that one can look at to drive cost out of the business and drive cost out in a sustainable manner. And I'm going to start from very transformative levers to tactical strategies that one can employ. One transformation lever is looking at the business model. This is where you look at your strategies, you look at your customers, and you look at your product. So you look at your entire business portfolio and you see what you can do to drive costs out. An example here can be cutting out the tail end of your product and rationalize the products that you offer to the market. And the bucket that I would like us to focus on today speaks to the operating model. This speaks to what is the role of the center versus the role of the business units. And here there is an opportunity to eliminate low value adding activities. And it's also a consideration of how services are delivered. And here you can look at redefining some of the service levels and also cutting out some of the duplication that may exist. And the third part here in the operating model looks at organizational design, where you look at spans and layers optimization, you're looking at the redefinition of critical capabilities within your organization. And that's where I would like to focus today, on the entire bucket of the operating model. But there are other levers like business process optimization, where companies can look at simplifying and maybe standardizing and re-engineering their businesses. And also there's another tactical element that one can look at that involves finance and procurement, where one can look at strategic sourcing, one can look at standardizing their master data, and here you can see opportunities where you can drive cost out of the organization. Let's look at the operating model. Maybe let me start by defining what an operating model is. And an operating model is different to a business model. The business model looks at how you use your resources and assets to deliver value. It speaks to your strategy. But the operating model, it looks at how you are configured in the business. It looks at your structures, looking at operational governance, and looking at how you are structured in the organization, but also a consideration of the capabilities that you need to deliver on your strategy. This can be hard capabilities such as processes and systems, assets, technology, but also softer capabilities such as ways of working and culture within the organization. So the way you look at it, really, it's that ham in the sandwich that helps you to take your strategy and how you then execute on it. And it's important for us to understand that operating model is not only a lever used to drive costs out, but it also influences how you go to your market, how you interface with your customers and suppliers, and how you react to different market conditions. It is really that how you make decisions and deploy resources within the company. It can also help you to unlock speed, simplicity, and growth, and help you to take a sober review of where to centralize, where to streamline, where to improve, and maybe digitize. And also maybe if you have non-core services, you can look at how you can outsource some of the services that you have within the organization. And there are many triggers that can help the organization to consider whether to change the operating model and the way that they are running things. It can be external triggers like what we have now, where cost reduction pressures are coming from an external world. But it can also be internal triggers like change in strategy or change in leadership. And it is important that it's not just a consideration of one trigger, but it's about effective integration and execution across different triggers to get a right future model for the organization. Depending on the choice that you have made, it influences how and where services are delivered. This is where you look at what work happens where. So if you are an HR function, you look at what HR services are provided from the head office and centers of excellence, and which ones are delivered at an operational level. So if you look at those services that are generic and does not necessarily need to be provided at the operations, this is where you can look at a shared services type of model. This is where you have procure to pay type of services, you have payroll. These type of services can be provided centrally. And how you can drive costs out here, you can drive costs out by looking at digitizing your shared services. If you already have a shared services model, you can look at where you feel it's non-core. You can have outsourced service delivery models where you have an external company actually delivering services for you. And for those type of services that are delivered centrally, where you have centers of excellence, these are the guys that drive the strategies of the different functions. Here you can look at rationalizing the functions. This is where you look at minimum capabilities that are needed to those nice to haves and overcapacitation. This is where you can remove duplication in the business. And for those services that need to be delivered at the operation, here you can look at efficiencies. You can look at how you can improve the skills of those that are delivering the services. This is an area that Manda is quite passionate about, where you talk about training and how you can make teams work efficiently. This is where you look at how you can do that. And also in the shared services, you can also improve how teams operate there as well. So how does an operating model help you to drive costs out of the business? It helps you by looking at your spends and layers of control by reviewing the functions. It looks at where services are delivered, where you can take out duplication and low value adding activities. It can look at where services are delivered from a center, what is the role of the center, and how can you drive out synergies. And by looking at an integration of those factors, you can drive costs out and drive cost out in a sustainable manner. But not only that, if you structure your operating model in the right way, you can create flexibility so that when times are tough, you can switch off some of the services that you are delivering, but also when the market is booming and the price is high and you want to produce more, then you can switch some of the levers on. This is where you drive flexibility. And also you can look at, based on how you structure it, you can help your organization to be agile, increasing its ability to make decisions quicker and faster. And that's how an operating model helps you to drive cost and increase efficiency in the business. Having delivered a number of these projects, what have we learned? We have learned that this really has to be driven from the top. Leadership has to buy into it, they have to own it, and they have to drive it. But they do not do it alone. This is where change management is important, to make sure that different functions in the business, different operational units are involved. Not only from a change management point of view, but harvesting those ideas from the floor, because you'd find that some gems of excellence, some gems of ideas, they emanate from the floor. So it's important to get those from the guys as well. But one more thing, it's important that although you are maybe shrinking to grow, you must never lose the mindset in terms of where the company is going. Linking to Manda's point last week about purpose-driven organizations. What is your purpose? Never lose sight of that and ensure that whatever capabilities you remove, you retain some of the capabilities that help you to keep your eye on the long term. So what are we saying to you? Harvard researchers have found that in the past 4 economic downturns, only 14% of the large firms were able to increase their EBITDA. So it is time to take bold decisions. And you can see that it's only the 14% because it's not always easy decisions to make, but it's decisions that you make now to make sure that you are there tomorrow as a business and that you can emerge triumphantly out of this economic downturn. Thank you very much.